emotionally, I'm becoming less and less comfortable with gold moving higher and higher. It's not that I don't want it to happen. It's that like every step it moves higher, I see that you can feel it in your bones that the monetary system.
You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
The government could soon stop you from buying silver. That's right. Rafi Farber, a trusted voice in the silver stacking world, is urging everyone to stock up on physical silver now, before prices skyrocket and new laws may prevent you from buying any more. Silver is surging, geopolitical tensions are rising, and the dollar is on shaky ground. This is more than just a price prediction. This is a warning you can't afford to ignore. Stay with us as we dive into why your silver stash might soon be out of reach.
Yeah, you can find me on Substack, endgameinvestor.substack.com. You can check out my YouTube channel. There's going to be a link to the latest video there. It's just my name, Rafi Farber. And if you want to learn with me about economics and the Bible, I was able to find a proto or an intimation of Austrian school cycle in the book of Micha and the book of Micah. I think maybe I told you that last time. I just published it. So if you're interested in ancient economics from a biblical perspective, then check out my Patreon at patreon.com/endgameinvestor. And just stay calm. I'm telling myself.
Silver is on the move, hitting highs we haven't seen in years. Just recently, silver surged to $31.50 per ounce, and experts are pointing to geopolitical tensions as the key driver. The Middle East is a flashpoint once again, with Iran launching missiles at Israel and a looming threat of further conflict. Safe haven assets like silver are becoming the go-to for investors looking to protect their wealth in these uncertain times. But that's not all. As the global situation worsens, the demand for silver could skyrocket even further. People are looking for security, and silver has always been a refuge in times of chaos. While tensions escalate and markets shake, silver is shining brighter than ever. So what happens next? Could this just be the beginning of a much bigger silver rally? And how much longer do you have to secure your share before prices soar even higher?
Look, the first practical thing you can do, there's a lot of social isolation in America. If you live in the city, I'd say get out. If you live in the suburbs, go knock on your neighbor's door and say hi and have a coffee. Introduce yourself. If you don't know your neighbors, get to know your neighbors, get to know your block. Share what you can do. Share how your skills. Have a conversation. Just be friendly with your neighbors and the people around you. That's already happened on my block. When you're all like scurrying, finding the nearest bomb shelter, and there's one in every block in my city because that's how they built it. It makes you closer. It was a few weeks ago we went into a bomb shelter with a family I'd never seen before. That's 1 block away from me, and now when I see them on the street, like, hey, we're like bomb shelter buddies. It builds your community. So more important than anything you have in your house beyond maybe a bunch of bottles of water and some canned food and some ammunition and bullets, you want to have friends. You want to have people that you can rely on, people who can rely on you, so that you don't see people next to you as competition, but more as allies and friends and people that can help you through this. Just gather the skills of the people, know what they can do for you, know what you can do for them, and be frank and be candid with them that, if something bad happens, you'll be there for them, and you hope that they'll be there for you. More than materials, it's more about emotions. If you're all calm when this happens, because you have enough water, because you have enough food, because you have enough ammunition, and you know the people around you, you'll be much stronger than if you have a huge amount of resources and you're worried about somebody coming into your house and taking it all. It's not going to make you calm. You want to stay calm, you want to stay collected, and you want to stay strong with your community. That's the most important thing.
While silver prices are climbing, there's another major factor, adding to the uncertainty: U.S. Federal Reserve policies. Just recently, Fed Chair Jerome Powell sent mixed signals about interest rates. On the one hand, he hinted at smaller rate cuts, keeping markets guessing. On the other hand, labor market data has been weaker than expected, leaving the door open for a more aggressive rate cut down the line. Why does this matter for silver? Well, when interest rates are high, holding non-yielding assets like silver becomes less appealing because investors want returns. But when the Fed eases rates, the spotlight shines back on silver, especially when it's already acting as a safe haven during times of turmoil. Rafi Farber believes this confusion is adding fuel to the fire. If the Fed cuts rates more than expected, silver could break out even further beyond the $31.50 mark. But if the Fed holds back, the price could stabilize temporarily. The bottom line? Silver's future is tied to a delicate balance between Fed policy and global uncertainty. How long can this balancing act last before silver shoots up even more?
Well, wait, let's talk about gold. New all-time highs almost every day now. When's the last time it went down? I don't even know. But let's just like step away for a second from the price action. I think Alistair McLeod is writing a lot about the COT reports and the managed money, and he has a lot to say about that. You can go check him out for the technicals on that, and he knows a lot more about that than I do. But what I have noticed is that that emotionally I'm becoming less and less comfortable with gold moving higher and higher. And if that's what's happening, it's not that I don't want it to happen. It's that like every step it moves higher, I see that you can feel it in your bones that the monetary system is coming apart. Like gold at 2,400, gold at 2,500, gold at 2,600 just doesn't stop. It's almost at 2,700 now. It's like 2,680, 2,690, something like that. And I look at the number. I'm like, good, okay, we're closer. And then I look at the news, and another bomb flies over my head, and there's an explosion. And Iron Dome. Is there an Iron Dome? I don't even know if there is an Iron Dome. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just a fireworks show. It's like everything is becoming just like all at once in my brain, which is one of the reasons why I suspended my Twitter account temporarily. If you can't find me on Twitter, that's the reason. I just need to disconnect from it for a little bit because, it's one thing to look at the gold price as it goes up and then cheer and then, remember that you are a stacker and like, okay, you thought of this and proud, good for you, pat yourself on the back. And then all of a sudden you hear this huge bomb and then all your kids have to run downstairs as the siren wails and you have to hide in the bathroom. I mean, it's a very different experience. So it's all coming in at once, and it's kind of hard to handle right now. So I'm meditating. I'm breathing. I'm thanking God that I already did my Army service, and they're not going to call me up. That was like 10 years ago. More. How old am I? It was like 15 years ago. And I'm just praying for my friends who were called up today, and soldiers are massing themselves in the Lebanese border. Now there's rumors of, is the war going to stop? Is there going to be some kind of, diplomatic deal before we invade? And I just heard another plane go over my head. He's probably off to Lebanon. So you see, I'm just giving you a general idea of what's going on here. It's a lot.
Let's take a step back and look at history. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time governments have taken drastic measures to control precious metals. In 1933, during the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, which made it illegal for Americans to hoard gold. Citizens were required to hand over their gold to the government in exchange for paper money. And what was the result? Gold's price was then revalued, leaving those who had surrendered their gold with less purchasing power. The government effectively seized control over the wealth of its citizens under the guise of stabilizing the economy. Now you might be thinking, that was gold, not silver. But here's the thing. Governments target precious metals when their economies are in crisis. Silver could very well be next. In fact, 1 year after the 1933 gold order, Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6814, which required citizens to deliver silver to the U.S. government for coinage. With the U.S. dollar facing mounting debt and inflation risks, could we be on the verge of another precious metal crackdown? Rafi Farber certainly thinks it's possible. And if history is any guide, when the economy collapses, governments will take extreme measures to protect themselves. even if that means confiscating your silver.
It's going to impact it. First of all, I don't know if I'm going to be affected. I don't think they're going to say you can't own any gold at all, because that's insane. Because a lot of people have some amount of gold, and let's say they're going after everyone who owns 5-6 ounces or whatever. That's they don't have the manpower to do that. No time to do that, and I don't think that's what they're going to aim at. I think they're going to aim at the big, really rich people, just like the income tax started with the super wealthy with Woodrow Wilson, the top 1%. I think they're going to go after the big businessmen who they suspect or know have a sizable amount of gold somewhere in a vault somewhere. I don't think there's that many people. But once I see what is going to be restricted, in the one hand, you could say, why am I talking about this? But on the other hand, I've already talked about it. So I can't really hide. Everybody knows who I am. And if the Israeli authorities want to figure out who has gold, they just got to go to YouTube. They'll find me. There's nothing else. There's nothing I can hide. Right. So my idea is basically, if Israel wants to go door to door, I don't think they're going to. Right now, this is just a suggestion. Let's not go too far with it. It's just an idea, and it could be shot down by the Bank of Israel, which is not very intent on banning the 200 shekel bill now. And let's remember also that Israel had a hyperinflationary episode in 1984. Right, the old shekel died. It's called the new shekel for a reason, and they didn't ban gold and silver back then. And so basically, my idea is I don't have that much gold. I don't have piles of it. I'm not Scrooge McDuck. I have a little bit. But that's it. I mean, so what can I do? I can make a menorah out of it. I can make a Kiddush cup out of it, or something like that, or some kind of religious article. The Israeli government is not going to come here with jackbooted thugs stealing religious Jewish articles from its citizenry, because that looks exactly like Nazis. They're not going to do it. There's a wall here. Okay. Big government, and this country was founded by communists. I understand that, but Judaism is bigger and it's more powerful than they are, because we all know where we come from. So I can hide behind that. I'm confident I can. And ultimately it's all up to God. And I'm staying here because I know that I'm not going to escape gold confiscation by leaving, because if it happens here, it's going to happen everywhere else too. We led people into the medical tyranny. If we choose to, we will lead people into financial tyranny. It's up to us. And I hope this time we choose the right thing and we get that maniac out of the finance ministry as soon as possible. I don't know how, or God just steps in and saves us from our own insanity.
When it comes to protecting wealth, silver offers something unique that even gold doesn't. Yes, gold is seen as the ultimate safe haven asset, but silver has a dual role. It's both a precious metal and a key industrial component. Think about it. Silver is essential for everything from electronics to solar panels, making it a critical material for the future economy. As the world shifts toward greener technologies, demand for silver is expected to explode. Rafi Farber argues that this dual demand makes silver not only a store of value, but also a growth asset. Unlike gold, which is primarily held for wealth preservation, silver has vast industrial applications that keep pushing its price higher. And while silver remains cheaper than gold, its potential for price appreciation is much greater. But here's the catch. Governments are well aware of this potential. And just like in the past, when times get tough, they might not hesitate to target silver holders. So the question isn't just about whether silver will rise, but also about how long you'll be able to hold onto it before restrictions come into play.
Well, look, in my way of thinking, and I think my way of thinking is the right way of thinking about this, a shekel is just a derivative, right? It's there's a pyramid, right? The pyramid starts with gold and silver. On top of that are fiat currencies, beginning with the dollar and then other dollar derivatives. The shekel on the pyramid is a dollar derivative, because the shekel is a unit of liability of the Bank of Israel. And the Bank of Israel doesn't own any gold. They own dollars. Dollars, theoretically, the Fed owns some gold or gold certificates that are in Fort Knox, representing about 8,000 tons or whatever it is. So the shekel is a dollar derivative and the dollar is a gold derivative. So the point is that when you give somebody a 200 shekel bill, the government can't track it. So but the reason that people use 200 shekel bills at all is because they're functional dollar derivatives, which are functional gold derivatives. So if you want to stay out of the system, you don't have to use shekels. You can use other foreign currencies, right? If there's no shekel cash, there's going to be dollar bills trading around and euros and whatever else going to be trading around in Israel. I remember when I made Aliyah, when I moved here in 2007, my rent, when I first moved, was in dollars. It was not in shekels because the shekel was a lot more unstable back then in 2007. It kept changing value, and so landlords couldn't really charge their rent in shekels. So we used dollars. I gave cash to my landlord. That was in 2007. But logically, if the shekel works but you don't have cash, and let's say the dollar doesn't work, or even if it does, you can still pass around gold or silver coins, gold for big purchases. You could, if there's no functional currency, you could give gold to your landlord or to whoever else to pay for goods and services. Because if there's no other cash and you want to keep your transactions to yourself, then you do it outside the bank system. You do it with gold and silver coins. Obviously, we're not going to use gold and silver coins directly until there's really no currency that's functional. But that's what's going to happen when it's no longer functional. So in order to lock us into a financial prison, you not only have to lock us out of cash, you have to lock people out of all foreign currencies, and then you got to lock people out of gold, which is basically what FDR did, right? But it's a very different matter to lock people out of gold at a time when the dollar or the currency is rising in purchasing power, as it was during the Great Depression. People needed dollars desperately, so they were okay with selling their gold to the Fed in exchange for $21 and whatever cents it was. But in a hyperinflationary economy, people are not going to be so keen on just giving up their gold to the government. It's going to be a mess. I don't even know if they can do it practically.
Let's talk about what could really set this all off: the collapse of the U.S. dollar. Right now, the dollar is under immense pressure from mounting national debt, rising inflation, and geopolitical instability. Many experts, including Rafi Farber, believe we're on the edge of a major currency crisis. If the dollar collapses, it won't just affect the U.S. The ripple effects will be felt across the global economy. Why does this matter for silver stackers? In times of severe financial crisis, governments often resort to extreme measures. We've already seen how silver prices are rising due to global tensions, but in the event of a currency collapse, silver could become one of the only forms of real money left standing. It's an asset that's outside the traditional financial system, free from the risks tied to fiat currency, but this also makes it a prime target for government control. If the dollar crashes, the government might scramble to secure its resources, and that could mean restricting or even seizing private silver holdings to stabilize the economy. The big question is, how long before they make a move, and will we be ready when they do?
Who is an Israeli economist, libertarian. I think he's Chicago School. I talked to him on my YouTube channel. If you check it out there, had a whole interview with him in English. He's very good English. So he had tweeted out that included in this bill is a restriction. It's undefined, right? These are suggestions to the finance ministry by a group of insane economists that they're just like, they're court economists, like, state Keynesian type evil bad people. And they recommended a restriction on cash substitutes, what they call cash substitutes, including gold, silver, medallions, and those sorts of things. So there's no number. I don't know how they're going to define it. This isn't even a bill yet. It's a series of suggestions by a group of academics to the finance ministry. And the finance ministry, I should tell you, is headed by one of the worst politicians in Israel, arguably even worse than Netanyahu. This guy's name is Bezalel Smotrich, and he was horrible. He was the worst during the COVID era. I mean, he had proposed locking the dissidents in their houses permanently until they submitted to what we call medical rape. Permanently, this was his idea. This guy is totally nuts. And he's in charge of the country's finances. So if this is coming from him, I wouldn't be surprised. The guy's evil. And then, before we go to the next question, the last thing I saw was that the Bank of Israel was upset about this because they're the ones in charge of printing, literally printing the 200 shekel bills. And it could be that somebody in there has some inkling of sanity to suggest that maybe this isn't a good idea right now to give a huge shock to the economy as we're about to invade Lebanon, and who knows what's going to happen, and who knows how many soldiers we're going to lose, and how many funerals we're going to. It's just a huge mess, and that this is coming out now is completely insane. So are we going to know a few weeks, a few months if this is going to go through? We'll see. And if you want to learn more about what Gilad Alper thinks, look at my channel on this topic. It's the last video.
Is silver confiscation really on the table? Rafi Farber thinks it's not just possible, but increasingly likely. We've already seen governments restrict access to cash, impose taxes on digital transactions, and tighten financial regulations. In Israel, where Farber is based, there are talks of restricting large cash payments and even cracking down on alternative stores of value like gold and silver. This trend of financial control isn't isolated. It's happening globally as governments prepare for greater economic instability. But why silver? Unlike gold, silver is both a monetary and industrial metal. That means it plays a crucial role in the economy, especially as we move towards technologies like solar power, electric vehicles, and advanced electronics. If the U.S. dollar weakens further, the government could look at silver as a critical resource, and restricting access might become a reality. Farber's concern is rooted in the fact that in times of financial crisis, governments often resort to drastic measures like we saw in 1933 with gold. Could the same be happening soon with silver? It's a serious concern for anyone stacking silver as protection against economic collapse. The question now is, how far will governments go to secure their own financial stability? And will silver holders get caught in the crossfire?
And all the bad people that don't pay taxes will have to pay taxes, and then we can use that money to fund the rest of the war. It sounds nice to the Israeli public ear, even though they don't understand what the point is. The point is to box us in and to make cash irrelevant, make cash illegal, so that every single transaction is tracked, right? And then you can't evade taxes at all. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to evade taxes, chas v'shalom, God forbid I would ever say something like that. But the effect of this, before we get to gold and silver, would be if there's a lot of outdoor markets are very popular in Israel. There's a permanent one in Jerusalem. There's a permanent one in Tel Aviv called Shuka Carmel. And here in the northern towns, they come once a week to this designated outside spot, and almost everybody uses cash, right? So most of and a lot of Drusim sell, a lot of Arabs sell, and they're not going to report most of it or any of it. I don't know what they report, but people who sell, like the poorest people, they're not going to report, like a 15-year-old is not going to report the babysitting income that she got, that she's been saving up for 10 years for a trip to India when she's done with the army, right? They're not going to report this stuff. And so everyone's going to have to report stuff now because they're cracking down on cash. And then what happens? Like you have to pay VAT, you got to pay income taxes, you got to pay Bituach Leumi. The whole thing comes to like 50-60%. Now imagine if you're not paying any taxes and all of a sudden you have to pay 50% of your income. What's going to happen to your prices? Well, either you're going to have to really cut down on everything and cut down on supply, and prices are going to go berserk, or you're going to have to raise your prices in order to cover the taxes that you suddenly have to pay, and prices are going to go berserk. That, and there are entire sectors of Israeli society that use only cash. One of them is Israeli Arabs. Or Arabs, they use cash. A lot of them aren't banked. And the other is the ultra-Orthodox Jews, the Haredi Jews, and they use mostly cash. Now, they have some banks, they don't say they're completely unbanked, but they use a lot of cash. And all these people are suddenly going to have to pay tax. This is like a huge portion of the population. So it's a huge shock to the economy. Supply and demand have to adjust radically, very, very quickly. And, it's going to be a big mess, exactly like it was in India. So then I read two more articles. One was that included in this bill, which I learned from Gilad Alper.
If you're already stacking silver, Rafi Farber has some urgent advice for you. Focus on physical silver. Unlike silver ETF or paper assets, physical silver can't be frozen, seized from your account, or easily tracked by the government. It's a tangible asset you can hold and hide if necessary. But don't just stack it without a plan. Farber emphasizes the importance of securing your silver in places outside the banking system. Private vaults, secure safes, or even offshore storage can offer extra protection if governments decide to impose restrictions. Farber also warns against waiting too long. As silver prices climb and the economic situation worsens, we could see regulations tightening around silver ownership. Right now, it's still legal and relatively easy to buy physical silver, but that could change in a crisis scenario. The goal for stackers: be proactive and protect your silver before it becomes harder or even impossible to acquire. But Farber isn't just talking about protecting your silver. He's also warning that governments might try to limit how much you can buy in the near future. If silver becomes too valuable during a financial collapse, laws could be introduced to cap ownership or even force you to sell. This is why it's crucial to act now, while the market is still open and unrestricted.
In terms of financial transactions for years, limiting cash transactions and from, let's say, $10,000. I'm speaking in dollar terms, but these are really shekel terms. So $10,000 maybe 10 years ago to $5,000 recently. And it's getting harder and harder to pay by cash. During the whole medical fiasco, they stopped accepting cash on buses as an excuse because they said that, cash carries viruses. It was ridiculous, but they were trying to clamp down on cash during that era for obvious reasons. And I saw this article on Ynet, which is the largest newspaper in Israel, a newspaper I also happen to be suing, by the way, for what they did to me during the medical tyranny and my family, but that's a different matter. So they were reporting on the 200 shekel bill that Netanyahu wanted to, I guess maybe by executive order or by passing a very quick bill, to get rid of the 200 shekel bill as fast as possible or as soon as possible. And this, like, on the eve of what looks to be an Israeli invasion of Lebanon, as the war comes to a crescendo, he's busy banning cash. So, I mean, the excuse is there's a whole underground economy, and not to say this isn't true. It's true, but it's irrelevant. Like, there's a whole underground economy that uses 200 shekel bills, and if the threat to demonetize them means they're all deposited into bank accounts as fast as possible, because otherwise you lose the purchasing power, and then the government gets this like windfall of taxes they can tax when they see all the 200 shekel bills that go into the banking system, and then you can pay for the war. The other argument is that the Arabs in Gaza use 200 shekel bills to fund terrorism, what they want to call terrorism. Just them fighting. I mean, we're in a war, and that's true too. And so it's a way to sell it to the public. And the 200 shekel bill, and it'll help us in the war effort.
So where does this all lead? If the U.S. dollar collapses under the weight of inflation, debt, and geopolitical tensions, governments will likely step in to protect their economies. And as history shows, one of the first things they could do is restrict access to precious metals like silver. Rafi Farber believes this isn't just a possibility. It's a high likelihood. The parallels with the 1930s gold confiscation are too strong to ignore. But here's the thing. If silver is already surging now, imagine what happens if the dollar really crashes. Silver could easily skyrocket past $1.50, even $100 per ounce, as people rush to convert their devalued dollars into something real, something tangible. This is exactly why Farber is urging silver stackers to act fast. The government may soon limit how much silver you can buy, or worse, force you to sell it. Rafi's message is clear: stack physical silver now, before it's too late. If silver continues its rise and the government steps in, you don't want to be left empty-handed. The window of opportunity is closing fast, and if you wait, You might be locked out of one of the best ways to protect your wealth during a dollar collapse. Remember, this isn't financial advice. It's about being prepared for what could be the most important financial event of our lifetimes. And don't forget, if you want to stay ahead of the curve on silver and market trends, make sure to subscribe. Keep yourself informed and protect your financial future before the rules change.